everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. Today, we are talking about one of our most favorite topics, and it is how do you become balanced in the everyday things that happen in your life? Our faith, our family, our finances, fitness, and even sometimes fortitude. What does it look like for us to be able to build our own toolkit to prepare ourselves for what's next? Now, we're winding down this year. 2022 is about to be a wrap. And with that, we all have a little bit of unfinished business. So today we want to talk about that. What are some of the categories that your unfinished business may fall into? Now, that unfinished business could be anything from starting a weight loss plan or learning how to manage your money or setting up your kids' college fund and bank accounts. What about doing your last will and testament? Even with that, so many of us have done the great escape and have not been coming back to church, but our faith gets called into question when we're not in the building. Oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about today. And of course, we have curated some great people who are going to share with us on how to keep balance as we round out the year and get done some of our unfinished business. We are joined today by Pastor J.T. Johnson, Dr. Tierney, Stacy Owens, and we have a special guest today, Pamela Sams of Jackson Sams Wealth Strategies. Welcome in, everybody. How is everybody doing?
Great.
Let me tell you, when we started thinking about putting this show together, one of the things that came to mind for me was how much unfinished business I have in these last few weeks of the year. So as we began to start our show and just talk to our honest audience very openly and candidly, I'm going to start with Dr. Tierney. Dr. Tierney, what are some of the unfinished business things you have going on personally?
You gonna start with me first? Okay, here we go.
I'm gonna always start with you first.
So it's funny that you were talking about the will and all of those things, because I literally just last week had a meeting with my attorney to talk about just all of the business of, my business. If something were to happen to me, what would happen? Would my husband even get everything? Because here in the state of North Carolina, it's not guaranteed that 100% of my assets would go to him. I have a lot of intellectual property. So how do I make sure that I have everything that I need legally for my professional, for my personal, for my assets, for my book, for my business, to ensure that if something were to happen to me, I'm not leaving this huge burden on the shoulder of my loved ones, and so that's one of the unfinished businesses that I'm leaving 2022, but starting in 2023, making sure that I have the right documentation and that everyone knows, what my desires are, where to find the paperwork, because sometimes Big Mama leave and then everybody looking like, where's the birth certificate, So making sure that everyone knows exactly where everything is, what I've already lined up, and making sure that it is legal, with the state, so that it won't be any contesting anything, because I've already done my due diligence and got my business together. So that's kind of my unfinished business that I'm in the process of getting finished.
Okay. Pastor JT, what say ye?
Wow. To be perfectly honest with you, Dr. Jacquie, I have a lot of open tabs. I am notorious for that on my computer. I will literally have about 50 tabs open across, and I really have a lot. So really, the only thing that I'm doing is just trying to go back and look at some of the things that I wanted to accomplish in the month of December. I kind of operate in a very succinct, organized calendar, and just really trying to go back and look and see if there's anything that I have not taken care of, that I can take care of, or if there are some things that may need to be pushed over to the new year. So it's really just doing an evaluation. So if I can say that, that's really what I'm doing, just evaluating the progress that I've made over the month. Definitely not trying to beat myself up over these 8 pounds that somehow found me. I wasn't looking for them. I think I'm just going to say that I was in a bulking phase. So when I start off January, I can say new year, new me.
Oh, my goodness. Stacey Owens. You see, Pastor JT gets us, y'all, every single time with that closing remark that just literally cracks us up. Stacey, what are some of the open tabs, if you will, that you have on your things of unfinished business?
Run some 8 pounds found you. That's new. Wow, I have a vision board, and usually what I do is I try to check in with my vision board about every other month or so, just to check off to see if I've started making any gains towards any new goals that I was striving to do for the year. And when I took a peek at it the other day, I noticed that one of the things I wanted to do was broaden my opportunities for speaking. So as you know, I was able to go to Cancun and speak. So I thought that was really good. I would say the most major thing that I still have left that I haven't done is I'm striving to open a high school to add on to the current K-8 structure that I have. And with going through some of the renewal and things that I'm doing right now, I just haven't had the opportunity to really jump out there and start that entity like I wanted to. But I've been trying to look at it from the perspective of it's not too late. I want to end this year with a bang. And I know normally whenever we talk about ending the year with a bang, we're talking about what parties we want to go to and how we want to celebrate the end of the year. But I think what I want to do is be able to complete or start one more major accomplishment before the end of the year, just to give myself a boost, or my self-confidence a boost, to let me know that I can still manage all my open tabs. You notice how I'm not even talking about how I'm like Pastor JT. I have about 100 tabs open that I've started, but I'm going to do one more big boost and at least submit some paperwork towards starting that high school, just to boost my confidence so I can go into the next year and know that I can carry that project on and continue with it.
Absolutely. I think that as everyone is listening, and even as I'm listening, I can think of a couple of things that I have open, things that I would like to do that I may or may not get to do. And I think this is where we have to really ask ourselves, are we in balance mentally and able to say, I have the resolve and the wherewithal to just let it be? Sometimes you just have to say, I can't do it all within the 365 days that I had. And it's good to just begin fresh when you don't have so much baggage on you. We're going to be introducing to a lot of you in a different segment, but I would like to have Pam Sams come on and share with us what are some of the personal things that she has open. And then when we get into our next block, we're going to take a deeper dive in how she can help us all. Hey, Pam.
Hey, how are you? I'm probably like everyone else, has so many tabs open, and I just recently got this app. It's called Sensa Health, and it talks all about procrastinating. Even though I'm a very efficient business owner, I procrastinate on a lot of different things that need to get done. So one of them, and really identifying why you procrastinate, is because you do have so many tabs open and you're trying to do so much. And I had a mentor years ago that told me, no is a complete sentence. I'm a people person. I love to help out. I probably have way too many commitments that I have on my plate, and that's why I have so many tabs open. So 2023 is really going to be an opportunity to really service the things that I can, and then really evaluate, do I need to be doing certain things as well? But that's some of the unfinished business I have, is trying to close some of the tabs, seeing what I can do efficiently throughout the year or as we finish the year, and then really focusing on doing some of the exercises they have in that Sensa app. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. When I think about it, now we started this series, this is part 2, and we talked about a challenge that we wanted to give our audience. So in this block, I'm going to go back around. I'm going to start with Dr. Tierney. What is one thing that you would challenge our audience to do as far as unfinished business? Go ahead and give us the challenge.
To handle your business. So there are some things that absolutely we need to pace ourselves. So we might need to start it, as my sister Stacey said, we might need to start it here, but we may finish it in 2023. There are some things that we need to just table altogether. But regardless of the method, we need to make sure that we're always handling our business, making sure that those things that absolutely need to be done, that we've either looked at them, had a conversation about them, we have them on the docket, we're researching them, or we're making some sort of forward movement to make sure that we're handling our business.
Absolutely. Pastor JT.
That's good. I'm going to piggyback off of my sister, and I'm going to stretch it and say, make sure it's your business that you're handling.
Oh, yes,
Because
sir.
oftentimes we find ourselves with a lot on our plate, but we are allowing other people to fix our plate. So I'm not going to go back, to a highlight of 2022 and talk about those low vibrational plates. But you got to be careful that you haven't gotten this close to the finish line and you are threatening to forfeit you crossing the finish line because you're trying to drag somebody that stopped running in June.
So if y'all can't say amen, just say ouch. Stacey Owens.
Oh, I gotta stop coming behind Pastor Jacquie. Again, they stopped running in June. Just set order. I challenge you, just set the order. Just, it's never too late to start, but you gotta have a well thought out plan so that, you won't run the course or get off course or find yourself, jumping too far and then becoming discouraged and not moving at all. So at least set the order by, creating your plan.
Absolutely. Pam Sams.
I think it's really don't ignore it, because in my field with finances, especially this year has been quite a ride in terms of volatility. Is that some people just don't want to open the statements, they don't want to look at the information. So don't ignore it. If you put your head in the sand, you can't fix it unless you know what's going on. So I really encourage people and challenge people: open the statements, look at it. As Stacey had said, have a well thought out plan on how you're going to deal with it, but don't ignore it.
Absolutely. Thank you all for giving our audience that challenge. When we come back after the break, we're going to go into a deeper dive with Pam Sams. We'll be back after the break.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, you've got some great tips already on how to begin to work on and tackle and approach some of your unfinished business. And I will say, just myself, like most of you in our community and communities all around the world, we have some unfinished business as it relates to how we not only manage our money, but how we approach dealing with banking, setting aside for college, making certain there's enough for funeral arrangements, having to take over someone else's responsibilities when they're no longer able to do so. So Pam Sams is here of Jackson Sams Wealth Strategies. And I'd like for Pam to just come on in, tell us a little bit about herself and her company. And I've got some questions for you. Hey, Pam.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie, how are you doing? All about Jackson Sams Wealth Strategies. I've been practicing for the last 20 years, really focused on financial wellness, particularly for women. But I've always had a passion, of course, with educating our community, with really figuring out what do they need to do financially to be financially well. I started my practice, like I said, 20 years ago, really by helping my mother transition to becoming a widow when my dad passed away in 2021. So I've always set out with the mission to educate and help women in the area of finances, and been loving it and doing it ever since.
So that's the thing, oftentimes. So we're going to start with one of the ones that I believe gets people all the time. And that's when men say, I give my wife my paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I think with that comes a lot of stress of being the one to have to handle all the finances. Talk to us about being the individual who manages the money for the household.
Yeah, and that can be very stressful for either party. Whoever's going to take over managing the day-to-day. But I always tell people to really encourage their partner to take advantage of what's going on in the household, be privy to all of what's going on, especially in the absence of one or the other. In the case of my mother, really, she was not, ignorant to the fact of finances. But my dad did all of the bills. He wrote out the checks. She would write out, what do we owe on a month to month basis. And then what it needed to be paid, but the overall picture. And I think that's what happens with a lot of women. Sometimes we know what's going on in our day to day, but the overarching picture of what the long game looks like. And so one person handling it on a day to day, it could be stressful. That's why you really need to get together and partner together to understand where things are. I always encourage people to do what I call a financial date night if you have a partner, even if you have yourself, but set aside a set amount of time to look at your finances, look at the state of the union and where things are, and then explain to your partner, this is what we have in certain accounts, this is what we have for the long game, this is what we have in the short term, and make sure that people know where things are so there's not so much stress. So alleviate a little bit of the stress.
Absolutely. So I want to build on that because there's long game for single people and then there's long game for couples. Mm-hmm. How do those two things vary and what does that budgeting look like as it comes to setting money aside for certain things, vacation, college fund, all of those things? I mean, there's just so much on a day-to-day basis related to money that if you skip one paycheck, you're near bankruptcy, because we still live in a paycheck to paycheck society, especially even during this time of pandemic and near post-pandemic times.
Exactly. And it can be quite a challenge. What I encourage people to do is have more what I call a bucket strategy. So there's going to be short-term finances and then your longer term. So your longer term would be college planning for kids or retirement planning for yourself or even maybe buying a new house. And then the short term, how am I going to pay the bills this month? How am I going to pay the bills next week? So on and so forth. But you always need to pay yourself first, before everything else goes out. What I hear a lot of times is that I will save whatever's left over. And a lot of times people don't have the leftover. But I encourage people to look at what they have coming in, pay yourself first. That would be that side bucket. So when emergencies pop up, you're able to handle those versus going straight to a credit card with that. So you need to pay yourself first. But in terms of kind of having individuals and couples, same thing. You're going to have a game plan on what do you want to achieve for the short term, what do you want to achieve middle term, and then the long term. For single people, it'll be the same structure. It'll just be different values, of course, and different goals. But that's what you're really focused in on is your short term, your medium term, and then your long term goals, and then working on those together. What I see sometimes and oftentimes is that I see couples, and this is the first time when they meet with me, is that this is the first time they've actually looked at the long game as a couple. They have various ideas of what they want retirement to look like, but they really haven't had that conversation. So here I am coming in as a third party, really trying to interact with them to understand what's important to either one of you. And then are there some compromises? What do you see going on in your situation? And then trying to develop a strategy or game plan around that.
Absolutely. I want to invite Pastor JT into this conversation because oftentimes marriage, faith, family, and finances, they seem to go together, whether it's on the positive side of the equation or the negative side of the equation. Pastor JT, I know that you counsel and coach couples pre-marriage and during marriage. How important are talking about finances in the dating and engagement and before I say I do phases?
It's extremely important. Actually, that's a segment of my premarital course where I discuss faith, family, fun, because I believe with those three, faith, family, fun, it gives you now an opportunity. Faith, family, fun, finances. I'm sorry, I know it's missing an F, but those 4 F's gives you an opportunity to really look at the total scope of what the marriage will look like. And I'm huge on this because there are a lot of people that spend a lot of time preparing for the wedding, but have no clue about the marriage. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so many people. The statistics are scary. 51% of people that get married get divorced. So I want you to think about that. for every wedding planner, for every decorator, for every DJ, for every culinary artist that has a wedding on one Saturday, this time next year, that wedding probably that couple won't even make it to the end. And it's typically things that they are thinking will just find their way to smooth out in the wash. But if you don't deal with it up front, just as Pam said in the previous segment, we kind of bury our head in the sand. And when we are forced to deal with it, we really don't even know the person that we said I do to. Because just because they look good in person does not mean that they look good on paper.
Mm. Once again, if you can't say amen, say ouch, because he brings up a very good question, the evolution of relationships, Pam, as it relates to how you approach money. If you get married at a young age, then you're out having a good time. And I know there are a lot of young people who are frugal. So we're putting that out there now. But then there's literally two different mindsets when it comes to being young and married, then married with kids, and then married being older. And then when jobs shift, when one person is employed and not employed. Pam, how do people manage their money, or should they manage their resources when someone is not working, as we saw happen during the pandemic?
That's where you really need to focus in on is who is bringing in the resources, and then really not be sour about it. Sometimes, there's a unbalance, so to speak, in the household. And as a pastor was mentioning before, sometimes there's animosity when it comes to finances. Who's bringing in the bacon, who's not bringing in the bacon, who's doing their share, who's not doing their share. So really focusing in on supporting each other during that time frame where there could be an absence of income, and then making sure that you have enough resources that are coming in, what's going to the bills, what's going to savings, in anticipation of having maybe an absence of income or a reduced income. That's where the rubber meets the road, when understanding your needs versus your wants in your household. And I go through a exercise with my clients is that there's a needs column, there's a wants column. If anything happens to your situation, what can we bare bones actually bring into the household to meet our obligations? Are there things that we can reduce or eliminate out of your budget? And then that's where you start from there. But back to what we were talking about, what Pastor was talking about with relationships when it comes to money, we bring into relationships how we grew up with money. So I have a lot of conversations with clients and prospects, people that I meet, understanding their money mindset. We develop our money mindset by the age of 6. And so we have our sometimes 6-year-old self still operating in the background of our money scripts and bringing that into a relationship. So with Pastor, when he does those, the counseling, you have to understand, what are you bringing into that relationship in terms of a money mindset? Did you grow up with your parents with a lot of debt? Was it talked about in the household? Did you receive an allowance? All of these different things come into play as you develop your relationship and as you develop building your financial household.
So you bring up a good question, Pam, as it relates to an allowance. And I know that those are touchy points with couples. And I'm going to ask you first, then I'm going to ask Pastor JT. I don't.
How do you want to say it?
Wait, so so for the time that we have in this block, an allowance for a child should be what amount? And then the allowance for an adult. And we're going to talk about that more in the third block, because I'm going to need some of y'all to level up on the allowance that you give in your spouses. So Pam.
The allowance on what you give your child really kind of depends. If they're going to be, I always had, when I gave my children allowance, there had to be some skin in the game. So there were chores that need to be done, and then you would get those. So I would say, what do you want? I always came up with the thing, you get money, you're going to save something, and you're going to give some away. So there's charity, there's money you're going to spend, and you're going to save some. So understanding what are they going to spend money on, and then how much they're going to give for charity, and then how much they want to put for savings. So that could be a wide range. You really need to kind of work that out with what that your child would the things or toys that they want. In terms of an adult, really figuring out, there's kind of going to be that fun money bucket that you have. So, and this would be something that you agree upon, that, if there's a certain dollar amount that you won't go over. So, if there's an expense that's over a certain percentage or a certain amount, agree that that would be the fun bucket money you're going to take it from versus the household expenses, and then what that would come up with. But again, it has to be a consensus on what do you want to put away and what type of allowance that you would allow for adult. That's the safe answer.
Okay. So when we come back after the break, we're going to give some unsafe answers. We'll be back in just a moment.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. As you can tell, talking about money and relationships is a conversation that can go on and on and on. But that may be some of your unfinished business as you round out this year. So I want to bring everybody back in because I think that this is one of those conversations where all voices are needed. There's some conversations that require the village. And, Pam already told us that you give your kids an allowance when they have some skin in the game. And I know Pastor JT had some things to say about allowances because there's kids and then there's adults. And Pastor JT, how do we manage those things when money is tight and we have to also make sure everything else runs smoothly?
Right. So now, as it relates to kids, I think to some extent, I think there has to be an open communication, especially. And so let me lend my comment to the side of the tight side, right? Because I think there are a lot of parents that somehow find themselves in stressful situations because when it gets tight, we're still trying to provide, man and quee the experience that they are accustomed to having. But I think that now gives them a false sense of what money is like or money management is like. And I believe now with our children being a little bit more aware of what's going on, I believe that a conversation definitely should be had. So, I guess now, time is different. I'm kind of, fortunately, I have two grown young men, so I don't necessarily have allowance in a sense, but they hit me up always, needing gas money or, stuff like that. So maybe I need to get a little bit more structured, but then I don't want to feel like I'm giving these grown men allowance. But that's a topic for a different day. But I would definitely say communication. And then I would say, and this word, I want to just throw this out here because I believe that this is a word that I believe everybody probably should start looking at if you haven't already, and definitely look at going into 2023, budget. If you have a budget and you have already told the money where to go, it's easy for you to move money around based on what's coming in. So kind of, with my boys being out of the house, kind of the way we think about budgeting or from an allowance standpoint from adults, we kind of live on the 60-40. And I know 70-30 was kind of, catchy, but we did the 60-40, 10 to God off top, 10 short term, 10 to long term, and then we split 10. And then we live off of the 60. But we're both entrepreneurs. So then now, if we want a little extra, hey, you got your business, you put a sale on for the weekend, so it's just that thought process, but again, I believe that having a budget really takes a lot of frustration out of life. And I always say this to my premarital couples, and I do premarital, intermarital, and postmarital. I've had to really spend some time counseling couples that decide that this ain't working and they have to go a separate way to figure out what's best for them, and especially with their children. But I always say this: it's a poor person that can wear Balenciagas but don't have a budget.
Yes, sir.
Well, now, Stacey, I know you don't want to come behind Pastor JT, but the segue is right, because you are an administrator of a school, and I know that you're teaching your kids a lot of things related to money and their wants versus their needs. How do you help them in the academic space begin to understand money, as well as balance out how they're asking their parents to spend their resources?
Wow. Well, I'm glad you didn't ask me about myself, because I was like, now see, last time they made me say I was not balanced with working out. I had to get in trouble with that. Now
True confessions.
about, I have to be the honest one about me and say, but in terms of how we do it here at school, I have a few of my teachers who actually use money as part of their classroom management technique. And so I'll give a quick example of one where the students earn a paycheck for completing their work, completing their assignments, for following the rules and that kind of thing. And then on the other side of that, she also makes them pay bills. So they have to pay a certain amount of money for their desk, a certain amount of money they pay electric, in terms of their computer usage and that kind of stuff. And when she first started this, it really made a couple of people say, well, isn't that cruel to charge the kids? It's fake money, of course, an amount for where they sit or for using the computer or whatever. But one of the things that she was able to accomplish with those students is that they started thinking about how they wanted to spend their money. And they also started thinking about their actions, because they knew that this would impact my money. So behaviors quickly changed, because nobody want their money to be funny. So if you just show me the pathway, I'll know how to act so that I can get what I need. And then everything in her class is about a choice. So it's not that you're telling me I can't do something. It's just you got to make your decisions and your choices based off of what you can handle with your funds. And let me tell you something, when kids have to spend their own money, it's a whole different conversation. And I thought, man, I should have done that with my kids when they were smaller, because they didn't have any problem spending my money. So, but now that those jokers are older and I start asking my grown children about things, it's even funny watching them as grown-ups now making their own money. Their choices now, it's like, Mom, you want me to buy that with my own money? Like, so yeah. So I think one thing is just teaching students about financial responsibility, and then how that play into the home. Again, like I've said before on the show, I serve a high impoverished population. So just teaching them how to, understand the difference between wants and needs, and understanding how you can, if you can't do these things now as youthfulness, like how do you think about entrepreneurship as you get older? Like, how would you change this if you had an opportunity to change it as you grow up? Because the decisions you make today in school is going to impact your ability to make that change when you become an adult. So I think that's the balance that we play with the role here as educators.
Absolutely. I think that those are valuable lessons. And as Pam already stated, sometimes our 6-year-old self shows up at the bank or at the department store, and we're really trying to figure out how to rub 2 nickels together to get something that's over that 10 cents. And so we have to really be cautious about how we do those things. Now, Dr. Tierney, when you think about people being able to level up with their money, what are some of the things that you share with your clients as it relates to, seeing money not only as a tool, also something that can really get in the way of your success if you don't do it well?
Absolutely. We say we're doing non-safe answers, right? Okay. And true confessions. So it is absolutely true that our 6-year-old selves show up as our adult selves, because I talk to adults all the time that their 6-year-old self is telling me why they want to buy what they want to buy with their money, when they done told me that they have a goal of saving this or accomplishing that, but them $2,000 shoes, and because they on sale, and that's self-sabotaging. Oftentimes we'll use our money to self-sabotage what it ultimately we want in life, because we want a quick fix. We want that jolt that we get when we see the Amazon package show up at our door. It's a dopamine hit. And so we tie our emotions to our money. And often the emotions that show up are those 6-year-old emotions, those emotions that want that instant gratification right now. And we don't see that the money that we make today impacts what we can do tomorrow. If I got it in my hand right now, I'm going to spend it right now. So then when I need it tomorrow, we end up normalizing things like the payday lending and all of those other predatory things that when people then take our money and charge us astronomical amounts of interest because we have not set a plan for our money because it was all about what I was feeling and not really what I said I wanted to do. So when I talk to my clients about their goals and where that relates to money, I kind of parallel money to like a hammer. Money is no different than a hammer. If you take a hammer and use it properly, you can build some amazing things. If you take money and use it properly, you can build some amazing things. But if you take a hammer and you try to go and kill a fly, you're going to tear down some stuff. Same thing with money. If you take money and use it inappropriately, it can tear down relationships. It can tear down so much, and things that we really don't necessarily always connect money with. And so what I do is I guide my clients to go back and look at their 6-year-old selves. True confessions. When my husband and I got married, that was one of the very first things that, or even before we got married, honestly, that was one of the first conversations that we had because he was taught, you make your money and you buy what you want. No saving, no tithing, no none of that. You just make your money and you spend it. So as soon as you hit your hand, it's gone. Whereas with me, my mom, that was the very first thing. It was, okay, we got to take out our 10% off the top. Before even Uncle Sam get his, King Jesus got to get his first, so take out your tithe. And then from what's left, that's where you delineate what it is that you want to do, need to do, want to do, and will save, and not necessarily in that order. Something else that my mother did when I got my allowance, then if I wanted my nails done, if I wanted a CD, yes, I just dated myself because I was buying CDs. It all came from my money. I wasn't spending her money. She would look at me and say, well, where your money at? I'm not buying you those things. I feed you and I clothe you. If you want that new Tommy Hilfiger, because again, I'm dating myself, Tommy Hilfiger. That was a big thing in the 90s. But if I wanted all of those things, I had to use my money for it. So when I became an adult, it was easy for me to put that little child in check because my mama did it back in 1991. 1989, 1987. She put that child in check. So it's easy for me to put the child in check. So when we're talking about money, that's the thing you have to do. Put the child in check. Put the child in the back seat and say, I'm not going to make financial decisions based out of these emotions that what I want right now, and I'm going to railroad my future because I'm just looking for instant gratification. And I'm thinking that the shoes are going to give it to me, that, this or that thing is going to give it to me. Let's deal with what is actually happening, the emotion that's actually there, and stop throwing money at it.
Absolutely. As you can tell, there's so many ways in which we can tackle these problems that we have in life, whether it's determining how to use our money wisely, if we're looking at things we want to buy, if it's trying to close some gaps and close some tabs, there are different ways to approach it. When we come back after the break, let's talk about approaches to managing and handling our unfinished business.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And let me just say, I've learned a lot today. Our guests today have talked to us about so many avenues that we can each pursue that will yield the results which we're seeking. Now, when we think about those things related to unfinished business and how do you become balanced, I'm going to start first because there are some things that I know I can say I need to just table for now. I believe that as an individual, I am at my capacity of, to use Dr. Tierney's word, trying to level up to get things done. It's just not in me at this point in the year for me. So I will say that for me, I need to table a couple of things that I thought I was going to get done. I'm going to finish writing the children's book. The illustrations are done. I have managed to put some money into savings, and I have started working on a last will and testament. So I am in a good space when it comes to being able to move myself forward into 2023. I'd like for each of our guests to kind of go around and say, what are some of the approaches that you are taking now to manage some of your unfinished business? And in light of that, it may help our viewers be able to figure out a great access point to begin to tackle those things that are hindering them. I'm going to start with our guest, Pam Sams.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jacquie. I am a big proponent on apps. And so if I can find an app that will help me process what I need to, as I mentioned before, I use an app. I just recently got an app. I have a lot of things, a lot of tabs open, procrastinate on some things. So this one will really help you do the behavioral piece of understanding and then putting things into place. So I have an app for that. Same thing, I think Pastor JT had mentioned his 8 pounds. I probably have something similar that showed up that I don't need it. So really understanding what do I need to do for 2023. I have a dietitian that I just hired. So really making sure I eat right, get back into the gym, some of the things that I need to do there. Between Christmas and New Year's, I always do my business plan. So that is up as well. And then recently I have some things that I'm working on in terms of building up my speaking practice and my speaking business as well. So I'm working on that and working with a mentor and coach. So those are some of the unfinished business things that I have going on for 2022 and into 2023.
Absolutely. See, Stacey, I'm going to give you a break. What you say, lady?
For me, it's about keeping myself mentally balanced. So when I start thinking about what do I need to finish up before the end of the year to start for that's putting a lot of pressure on me. And I just can't, I can't mentally handle that. So I like to celebrate my efforts. I'm always saying, celebrate your effort, honey. I opened the book today. Like I haven't done any homework in a long time. They're going to call me in a moment. I opened a book. So, let's celebrate that. Let's reflect. Let's think about 3 things that I feel like I've done well this year. And then I ask myself, what did I learn in those moments? And then I'll be honest with myself and I think about, let's think about 3 things I didn't do well. And then let's reflect on that because it's in those failures that has always made me stronger. So I tend not to box myself in terms of thinking about time parameters. I just sort of reflect and celebrate. And that's how I keep moving. Reflect and celebrate.
Yeah, that's an excellent approach. Dr. Tierney.
So I gave myself, I'm giving myself 3 gifts this year. And these are the kind of the strategies in terms of closing out the year. So first, give yourself the gift of grace. Don't beat yourself up. If you're at this point and your list is beyond what you thought it would be, and you thought you would have some more boxes checked off, give yourself the gift of grace and know that it's okay. This is not the end. We can, start over. We can keep going, Give yourself the gift of permission to do what you need to do and you want to do to close out this year. So be that take a meeting, take a nap, take a vacation, whatever it is that you need to do or want to do to help you finish the year strong, give yourself permission to do that. And then give your gift the gift of saying no. Sometimes we get into this process of just yesing everything where you may need to say no, even to yourself, where you might need to stop justifying something that you're doing to say, no, I'm not going to do that. This is what I'm going to do instead. Or, just give yourself that gift to say no to yourself, no to others, so that you can finish the year strong and actually accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish so that you can start 2023 off on the right foot.
Absolutely. Pastor JT.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jacquie. I am actually going to use some of my Cliff Notes. Dr. Tierney was telling us all these gifts she's given herself. I wrote a blog on how to finish strong. So I'm not going to read the whole blog. I'm just going to give you the 5 bullet points that I came up with. Number 1, recommit to your goal. Don't go into 2023 without committing, because I think that when we go in with non-committal attitudes, we'll start finding ways to make excuses. Second thing, be effort driven, not outcome driven, because as long as Stacy said, if we celebrate the effort, it will cause us to show up every day and start to make progress. If we are only looking at the finish line, we'll start now being mad at ourselves because we didn't get to the finish line at a time that we thought we should have gotten there, when we are making more progress than somebody that's sitting on the couch doing nothing. Number 3, identify what you need to stop doing. Going back to what Pam said about procrastinating, there are some of us, we have been paralyzed by analysis. We're overthinkers. We just sit and we think and ponder. And it's somebody that's listening right now. Don't write another thing on that vision board. You don't need to do nothing else. Let's start completing some things. Let's start getting some wins under our belt. Number 4, identify what you need to continue to do. There are some things that you did in 2022 that you've never done before. And just because you did it this year, that does not mean that it was only for this year. It very well could be the same thing that you need to do consistently to get you some wins in 2023. And number 5, identify what you need to start doing. What you need to start doing. You may need to start going to bed earlier. You may need to, instead of waking up in the morning, before you pray to God, before you see if your legs still work, you may need to stop checking Facebook and Instagram. You may need to start creating a budget. You may need to start disciplining out that 6-year-old that's telling you that you need to go buy another pair of black shoes when you don't have space in your closet for the 11 pair that you have now. So those are some of the things that I think will help not only get us to close out the year, but it will build the bridge that helps us move from ending the year strong, but then starting the year ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. Let's bring everybody back in, because as I'm thinking about this, I want to give everybody a challenge. So the challenge is mindset. We've listened to a host of ways in which we can begin to move ourselves forward and, kind of get things going or just kind of wind things down. And you've all talked a little bit about a mindset, and I'm going to start with Stacy. So yeah, you're back behind Pastor JT. But what is the mindset? And this is the question for everybody that I want you to leave with our audience. What is the mindset that our viewers should have if they're really going to take hold of some of what we said today? What is the mindset? Go ahead, Stacy.
That everything you need, you already have within yourself. Just do it.
All righty, Pam Sams.
Yeah. What mindset shift is really understanding what do you need to focus in on and not beating yourself up if you don't. Just what Pastor JT said, if there are some things that you're doing and you don't want to be doing, don't do those. But you do have to have the mindset to make a change, make some adjustments, but don't beat yourself up if you're not on pace to do it. It's always a process and what you need to do.
Pastor JT.
I want you to have the mindset of a boxing champion. I wrote about this too, so I'm just going back, this is great stuff. I want you to have the thought process, the mindset of a boxing champion. Every boxer leaves out of their room heading to the boxing ring, and they are believing that they're going to win. But the person that wins is the person that endures the most punches. It does not mean that you won't take a hit. It does not mean that you won't get knocked down. But I want you to have the mindset of a champion, that nothing will stop me from getting back up. And I promise you, if you have that mindset and you keep getting back up, eventually your hand is going to be raised and victory is going to be yours.
Dr. Tierney.
Literally, Pastor JT just stole my answer. Like literally. So that just means it's going to bear repeating, because you must have to hear that this is for somebody, because I literally was going to say, start from the place of victory, not victim. Start from the place of knowing that you're going to win. I always tell people I don't lose. I never lose. I either win or I learn. So stop thinking like, oh, I'm going to take a L. Yeah, a lesson. Because when you take a lesson in every situation, you're looking at it as something that I'm learning, then that means you're either going to win or you're going to learn. And if you learn, that means you're learning how to win. So ultimately, you always win. So starting from that place of victory, like my brother just said, boxers don't come out going, oh, I hope I win this. I hope I win. But they come out knowing that they're going to win. And ultimately, they win. If maybe not that match, they learn and then they win again. So start from that place of victory.
Okay, so hold that thought for a moment because I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. How do you take a setback and turn it into a win, Dr. Tierney?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is where you turn that L from a loss to a learn. What is it that I need to do? So like if I make a move in my business right now, and let's say I don't hit the goal that I was intending or, whatever it is, then I look at it. And this is something I actually do. I take it and say, okay, so what was my marketing plan? Do I need to tweak that? Are there more I need to run messages more this way instead of this way? Should I have ran them more on Google as opposed to Facebook? This is when you sit down and you look at what you did and you learn from it instead of just beating yourself like, oh my God, I didn't get it. See, that means and we start to do that stinking thinking negative self-talk. This is where you learn and say, okay, what is it that I did this time that maybe I need to tweak it? Or I know that this doesn't work. A boxer, they'll go back and they'll watch the videos. Football teams, they'll go back and watch the videos of where they might have dropped their hands when they should have held them up, or where they ran left when they should have ran right. I mean, this is where you literally sit down and tease that thing apart to learn exactly what you did this time, make the adjustments, and then do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again until you win.
Absolutely. So as you guys can tell, oftentimes, you've heard this before, sometimes a setback is a setup for a comeback. And we have to figure out how we're going to manage those things that literally knock us on our heels and sit us on our butt. And so it is in this season, as we're winding down this year, that you're able to establish and discover what is your baseline for being able to recover. When we come back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And I'm going to say this. In Vogue, I think, said it best. Free your mind and the rest will follow. There are going to be times where you have to figure out, where does your clarity come from? Clarity can come from a variety of places, but oftentimes it comes with you being able to sit down and settle your mind, to physically remove yourself from the fray so that you can really see the bigger picture. I like to liken this into a hologram. Oftentimes we can't see what the picture is because we're too close to it. So in this season of life, as we're moving toward the end of the year, you need to step back and step a little further back and even go a little bit further back. And then ultimately the real picture begins to emerge. And that's what happens in our everyday life. Oftentimes we cannot see what's happening and what's going on because we're too close to the situation. So when it comes to being able to balance your unfinished business, sometimes you just need to take a pause, take a beat, take a breath, step back from the situation and allow yourself to gain clarity. Thank you everyone for watching and have a great new year. Bye now.